Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the front room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we have got Jordan Howard telling it like it is. Bears making an offensive hire. The Bulls, the tank is back on. And finally some baseball news. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. So head on over to icehogs.com. Get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, my friend, we are recording the day after the Super Bowl, and Philadelphia is already in bedlam.
Yeah, there's quite a few broken windows, some destroyed convenience stores, some things on fire, some poles on the ground, and some stuff that's even more gross that I'm not sure I even want to bring up on this.
I think I know exactly what you're
talking
talking
about.
about.
I'm talking about. And if you're eating and listening to this, I suggest you don't if you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
My goodness.
So yeah, we this is gonna be an interesting week. Not a ton, but some things to talk about. I was told by my friend Gary, who I reference on the show. He's my friend that has Bulls and White Sox season tickets, and he was telling me it was yesterday morning. He was telling me that we don't talk about the White Sox enough. And that the White Sox are going to be an exciting team in the future, and we need to talk more White Sox. So I figure the first thing we can do is we can give a little rest in peace notice to former Cub and former Chicago White Sox, Oscar Gamble.
Yeah, I looked at his stats, and I think what I saw was, I'll look at him now, I'm pretty sure he had a career-high 31 home runs when he was with the White Sox. Let's see. Yeah. I got the stats in front of me now.
But he was
yes, 31 home runs in 1977. That was his 1 year with the White Sox.
No. He played in 1985 for the White Sox, too.
Oh, he did? Yeah, I didn't notice that. That was his last year of his career. Yeah.
Yeah, he plays first year with the Cubs and the last year with the White Sox.
And then he had that one really, really good year with the White Sox in between. Yeah, I mean, that was his career year. 1977, it was 297, 386, 588, 974, 83 RBIs, 31 home runs. So he was 29th in the MVP voting, so he made the most of his career in that year with the White Sox.
Yeah, he did. So he passed away since the last show of cancer. So rest in peace, Oscar Gamble. Also rest in peace to former Bull Rasul Butler, who died in a car accident with his wife.
Was sad.
In Los Angeles.
That was really sad.
I mean, Oscar Gamble was a little bit before my time. I remember him a little bit when I was a kid, but Rasul Butler, I remember the whole career. So it was that one hit a little closer to home.
Yeah. I mean, when was the last time he played with the Bulls? Because I remember him, but I don't remember really when he played exactly.
He played. I'm trying to think of what year it would have been for the Bulls.
Oh, that's why we have Google here.
Yeah, it must have been 2010. Because he only had one
very
year with
brief,
the Bulls.
2010, 2011. And I forgot he was a thing on that team. I really did. Because I remember watching that team night in, night out. And I completely forgot about him. Because when I think of Butler at the time, I'm like, oh, that was the year we drafted Jimmy Butler. And then, yeah, I don't remember how many games he played in, but yeah, that's really sad.
Yeah, I mostly remember him, I mean, from his Miami days, but probably most people do. But he had a nice long career, and you know, it's sad to see him go. It was
only
a
6
pretty
games
tragic
with the
event.
Bulls in his career. Just 6 games in that 2010-2011 season. It's probably why I don't remember him playing that year. I remember him being a Bull for like a little brief time. I didn't remember it was that year.
Yeah, so it was a very brief time, but you know, I remember them bringing him on. So rest in peace, Rasul Butler as well. So let's talk a little White Sox. Not a ton. Recently had Sox Fest, and also not too long ago, Baseball America released its top 100 prospects list, and the White Sox had 5 players on the top 100.
Yeah, that's something you're not used to
list.
hearing, but you know, Rick Hahn has created an embarrassment of riches when it comes to prospects in the system. And to me, this really kind of says, I feel like there's no way this rebuild can fail because, yeah, prospects don't pan out, but if you just hit on a few of those, things are going to work out. That's usually how it goes.
If you want to talk about a prospect not hitting, look at what Jorge Soler did.
There was actually just an article about that. And, you know, people were saying, what's the one prospect the White Sox signed? Not Eloy, that they got them in the trade, not Moncada, not Rutherford. Louis Roberts. Thank you. And people were saying, like, you know, what's the chances going to pan out? And, you know, you always say, you never know, but he's one of how many top prospects in that farm system? I mean, how can you, even if he doesn't work out, look at how many other guys they have. And Louis Roberts is kind of one of the guys that people are comparing to Jorge Soler. So it shows that, you know, Jorge Soler was once like a really high talented prospect. Unfortunately for him, he's had some injury issues. That's kind of the reason why he hasn't panned out, as many people say. But, you know, when White Sox fans get nervous about the rebuild, I just say, you have so much of this. It's really like almost statistically impossible for you to miss on every single one. Like there's some of them are going to work out.
Yeah. That's the thing about, you know, if you think about the Cubs many moons ago, is they put all their eggs in one basket. I'm sure you remember the Felix PA basket, where he was untouchable. He was the future of the Cubs, blah, blah, blah. That was it. That was like the extent of their minor league system. When you put all of your eggs in a basket, especially in baseball, there's a good chance that that's a bad investment. But the Cubs, you know, they had so many prospects that were you know, well thought of, that even if, I mean, the Cubs had a very, very good return on how many panned out and made it to starting roles in the major leagues, and you know, you don't normally get that high of a hit rate. But even if you didn't, like, having so many players it just increases your odds of how many guys you're going to get. And Rick Hahn has done a fantastic job of making the most of a pretty bad situation.
It's really funny with them. Like, I'm sorry, finish your thought.
Oh, yeah, and I'm just saying is you got Eloy Jimenez, who's ranked number 4 in Baseball America's top 100. Michael Kopech is 11. Alex Hansen, who popped out of the blue, 57. Louis Robert at 58, and Dane Dunning, 82. So you've got 5 guys in the top 100. And even if only 3 of them pan out, that's like, like a third of your, starting, 9.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm looking at Baseball America right now, looking at the top 10, and Eloy being number 4. They're among, some really good names here when it comes to like the farm. You got Gleyber Torres in there, Victor Robles, Shohei Ohtani. It's pretty good company. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., really good company to be a part of. And what I was saying was, when you have this many prospects and you have all different kinds of prospects, like you have some pitching prospects, you have some outfield prospects, you have some infield prospects, you have a little bit of everything. And it's funny that they were able to get all this, because think about it. 2016 and before, like after 2005, before 2017, I should say, because 2016 they were still under the old scheme. The White Sox weren't any good, but they had so many good players on the team. Like they had Chris Sale, they had Jose Quintana. They didn't trade Abreu, but they had him. They've had Adam Eaton, who got a pretty big bundle, and then they were able to package some other guys together in trades. So it's just funny how much good in prime talent they had, even though the teams were never really that good.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is you optimized the talent you had in trade opportunities. You didn't flip them for when low ball offers. You waited and you maximized it. And Rick Hahn's a really smart baseball man. And when the Cubs, before they hired Jed and Theo, I was really hoping that they were going to talk to Rick Hahn. I thought that he would be a fantastic hire for the Cubs.
Yeah, because he's been in Chicago for a while, and Rick Hahn grew up a Cubs fan, so it seemed like a good fit. But I mean, think about before the whole rebuilding thing was, a huge thing in baseball, because we've seen it pay off the last few years. It just shows how things have changed. I mean, look, 10 years ago, the name of the game was getting a bunch of good all-star veterans, a lot of them 30 and above with experience. You don't see that work that much anymore. So things have really changed in baseball, and the White Sox finally adapted to it, because for many, many years, they basically tried to remake the magic of 2005, and that didn't work. And Kenny Williams would never step down from that kind of philosophy. And then Rick Hahn finally gets to call the shots here, and you see what a huge difference it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And another crazy thing is there was Rick Hahn had a quote about the potential of Eloy Jimenez being brought up this year. Now think about this. He could be brought up this summer, and he's only had 73 plate appearances, higher than single A.
Yeah, that's crazy.
The Cubs knew what they were giving up to get him, and I'm not sad about that trade, but a good trade is both sides get something good. That's a good trade.
Yeah, I mean, both sides got what they needed.
Yeah, the Cubs needed controllable pitching that was major league ready that could help them now, and the White Sox needed future talent, and they both got what they wanted. And it sucks because you think about it, it's especially in baseball, fans aren't happy unless they get something for nothing. And fleecing teams is fine and good every once in a while, but I think we've said it before, and Bill Belichick had a quote about it too, is if you fleece everybody, nobody wants to trade with you anymore, because they know they're going to get fleeced. And if you can't make trades in baseball and work with other GMs, then you're not going to be in the league that long. You need to be able to work with other teams. You need to be able to make moves when it fits what you need to do. And part of that is doing things in a fair way. You know, the whole idea of a trade, you got to give something to get something. And the Cubs gave up a whole lot to get Jose Quintana, but they got a whole lot. Jose Quintana is a really, really good pitcher, and he's on a really, really good contract.
Yeah, and I would understand if people are upset if there was like a 1-year rental, but it's not. It's over multiple years, and the contract, like you said, is incredible. I think some people just have to realize trades are trades for a reason. Not everyone is just going to be like, oh yeah, give me your greatest asset and we'll throw in a few mid-level prospects and maybe some cash. I mean, come on, that's not how it's always going to work. In fact, fleecing is something that I think is overexpected because there's a lot of trades that are seemed to be fleeced when they first happen. And then down the road, you realize, maybe that worked out even better for the other side. I mean, this is a completely different sport, but when Jimmy Butler was traded to the Timberwolves, everyone thought that the Wolves just completely robbed the Bulls. But now we're seeing how the talent is developing, and we're saying, that actually turned out pretty well for us. So sometimes you can't always gauge a trade right off the bat. Sometimes it takes some time. Who knows? I think Quintana is going to be really good for the Cubs, and I think Eloy Jimenez is going to be one of the best hitters in baseball when he comes up with the White Sox. But, watch. Quintana could get hurt and never be the same again. Eloy Jimenez could come up and be a complete bust. You don't know for sure right off the bat at times. You judge trades by the value of what they are. And you can look back at a trade that didn't work out and you could blame them all you want, but then you say, hey, when that happened, what was everyone thinking? Everyone was thinking that was a good trade. So it's not like they could see in the future. They were getting for what the value was at the time.
And in other sports, most of the time it's either for draft picks or it's a player that's currently in professional league for another player that's currently in the professional league. But baseball, most of the time it's a veteran who has done something and you're trading them for somebody that just has potential. And that's when, fleeces do happen. And it's not, most of the time, I don't think, we went in there knowing we were going to fleece them. I think it was, we gave them what we thought this was worth and what they thought was worth. We came to an even thing, and this player just well beyond exceeded what we expected. You think about like some of the Cubs trades is throw-in guys have been basically really good. So it's you never know with prospects. Like you're right, Eloy Jimenez looks fantastic. All indications he's going to be a really good major leaguer. But like I said, he's only got 73 plate appearances above single A. He could really struggle for a long time. He could just bomb out. He could have an injury. Not trying to be a negative Nancy. I'm just saying is you never know when, with baseball prospects. And that's what the difficulty in making a trade is, because you have to guess what this player is going to be in 3 to 5 years versus a player that's currently playing and what he's going to be, give to you right now.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know that some of these Cubs are going to work out or not. When Chris Bryant was coming up, he looked amazing, but there was no guarantee. When Rizzo was in San Diego, he really struggled for, the month he played there? He had the potential. They saw the potential, but there was no guarantee. When you draft some guys like Soler, I mean, remember, like I said earlier, he was like one of the top prospects in baseball, and then injuries happened. You don't know for sure. And again, this is not us trying to saying it might not work for the White Sox, because I'm trying to stress I really do think it will. But like I said, what if Quintana gets hurt? Like he's never been hurt. What if he suddenly gets hurt and that never, turns out? It could happen. It could happen. But at the time, Quintana was a hot commodity. Eloy Jimenez was a hot commodity. You swap and there you go. You know what's interesting is that you can look back at some trades, like you said, where the throw-in guys excelled and where the person who people were upset of losing was like never turned out to be much. I mean, you could say that about the Mike Montgomery, Dan Vogelbach trade. I mean, Mike Montgomery actually has more hits in the majors as a pitcher than Dan Vogelbach does. So again, it's sometimes hard to gauge a trade right off the bat. Now, the White Sox, in their scenario, all their trades got what they wanted. They wanted prospects. That's what they got in every single one, and that was smart.
Yeah, and they've scouted very well, and they know exactly what they're getting, and they've all got the arrows pointed in the right way. And you got to trust that Rick Hahn has the right coaches in place in the minor league system to keep those guys on the path. So in 2 to 3 years at this point, you have just got a stacked major league roster.
I was saying a few weeks ago that I actually think this White Sox team will be around 500 this year.
Yeah,
I really do.
I think they're going to be just shy of 500, but they're going to be a pretty competitive team. And the smart thing is, look at how many low risk, high reward contracts they have for guys that they can flip at the trade deadline.
Yeah, even if you don't get much out of them, getting something is better than nothing. I mean, they got a low-end prospect for freaking Gonzalez last year, and that's something. It's better than nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, and bullpens get bullpen arms are so fickle. Is one year they could just have a phenomenal year, and the year before and the year after are terrible. So if you get some of these middle relief guys and they post a good season, suddenly you can flip those for to a team that needs a bullpen arm, and they're going to overpay because they're a playoff contender.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing about some of these White Sox prospects. Like with the Cubs system, that some of them are not all going to be with the White Sox when they're contending. They're going to be traded away for other pieces. That's part of the process. The Cubs have had to trade Gleyber Torres, who's a top prospect right now. I mean, think about how stacked that farm used to be. The same thing's going to happen to the White Sox. They're going to call up guys, they're going to trade some guys, and then one or two may just, fizzle out. And that's what happened to the Cubs. It's what's happened with the Astros. It's what happened with the Kansas City Royals. And kind of going back to what the White Sox have looking for the future, here's another really good thing for them. The AL Central is going to be bad for a long time outside the White Sox.
I mean, the Royals are not looking so hot, but
they're going to be terrible for decades.
And Detroit has spent so much money, and they're bottomed out.
They're screwed for the future.
The Indians are still going to be there, but who knows what the Twins are going to be. So the White Sox do. They have a very manageable division.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the Indians are probably going to be their biggest rival in that division. For a long time, it was the Tigers, but the Tigers are going to be bad for a while because, like you said, they're wrapped up in those big contracts. They don't have much of a farm system, and they're not going to be able to trade those guys for any assets because they're old and broken down. So they're going to be bad for quite some time. Who the hell knows what the Twins are? Again, like you said, one year they lose 97 games. The next year they win 97 games. So, I don't know. But, yeah, they're going to have a pretty favorable division, which, hey, take advantage of that. Really got to take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was telling my buddy Gary that the cool thing about where the White Sox are at in their rebuild is the Cubs' window of being able to win a World Series and the White Sox window are going to overlap. And it's going to be really awesome to have just absolutely awesome baseball both sides of Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about this the other day. I feel like when both teams are good, though like the rivalry games are high because both teams are good, I feel like at least each fan base will be nice and focused on their own because usually when one team's good and the other team isn't, the fans of the team who isn't are always all, bitter and angry and always trying to downplay what the other team is doing. With both teams being good, they can enjoy their good teams at the same time. If that makes any sense. That's at least my thought process.
Sorry, I had it on mute and I was talking to nobody.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where'd you go? Did the snow get you or something?
No, I forgot I'd put it on mute because my neighbor is snow blowing. So I had it on mute. But another thing I was thinking about is, have you noticed that the Cubs Sox fan dislike of each other has really mellowed out since both teams have won a World Series fairly recently?
Yeah, a little bit. You know what I noticed? The night the Cubs won, the White Sox fans who were vocal were the ones who were being congratulatory and very gracious. So, that really showed the good side of the rivalry there. And I just feel like there isn't one side has to brag, the other side has to defend themselves. They've both won now. So I still see some bickering in between, but yeah, go wind the clocks back to 2007, 2008, because those were the years where the Cubs were back in contention again and the White Sox were fresh off their 2005 World Series. So the tension was really, really high.
And it also helps that they really haven't played a meaningful game since Michael Barrett punched A.J. Przinsky in the face.
That was a long time ago.
But speaking of the Cubs, we're just about a week away from pitchers and catchers reporting, and there's still no sign of the top 4 pitchers signing anywhere.
I was hoping today would be the day, but it wasn't.
Yeah, and basically the big news we have is Darwin Barney signed a minor league contract with the Rangers.
Woo! Not only that, but they also got Bartolo Colon.
Oh, well, there you go. So, yeah, there's just absolutely nothing. And I'm hearing rumblings that some players are talking about boycotting spring training because they think there's collusion. And at this point, it's hard to think that there isn't some level of collusion. I'm not saying a full-on, we're going to stand as a united front, but I have a feeling that the philosophy, not the collusion it's a organized racket to stop players from signing big contracts, but I think it's just a changing philosophy that's finally come to a head. Everybody agrees. Why are we going to pay this 30-year-old guy for what he's done previously? We want to pay him for what we think he's going to do for us on this contract. And players don't like that. They want to be paid for what they have done. And it's coming to a head right now.
My whole opinion on this is that a lot of the problem with a number of these teams, including the Cubs, and this doesn't apply to everyone, but I think this applies to most contending teams right now. I don't think the money is the issue. I think it's the years they want, because there was the rumblings where Darvish wanted 7 years, and you're thinking, okay, he's 31, he's had some arm problems, 7 years, that's a lot. So I don't think the Cubs are as concerned about the money or the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers and the Yankees have to clear some space away. And there's the whole thing about Darvish possibly waiting on him. But those are all big market teams that know that if they clear the space away, they're going to be opening up the checkbooks. And that other teams like the Brewers, they may be in on them, or they're just using it to kind of up his price for a division rival like the Cubs. But I don't think the Cubs would have much issue paying him $25 million a year. I just don't think they want to give him 7 years.
You can't blame him.
I can't either.
Yeah, so you want a guy that's going to be viable for an entire contract, not sign him for 7 years and hope you can get 5 and then just suck it up for those last 2 years. You don't want to do that.
And put it from a business perspective. Let's say you're just a regular old business and you're looking to hire people and you're looking to fill certain roles in your business. And you go over what people have, whether it's their resume or what they say in an interview, and you kind of have a time frame in place, because some businesses will say, we want you for at least this long, or we're looking to grow you for this long, or what are you looking to grow with? And if a potential person they're going to hire doesn't really fit the criteria for a number of years, in other words, they say, I don't know if this person will be able to perform at the desired level for our business by this year. That's kind of what's going through these teams, I think. They're thinking, he may be good for a few years, but if we give him 7 years, are we going to employ a guy we don't think is going to be able to do the job as efficiently for this number of years? No, you don't see that in the business world, really, and you don't see that here. And I know sports franchises have a lot of money. I get that. And like I said, I don't think money is as big of the issue, but I can't really blame them for saying, I don't feel comfortable giving 7 years to Darvish because of his age, because of some recent arm problems, because it could cause a problem if things don't work out, if there is another injury or he gets too old. By 35, he starts to fizzle out.
Yeah, and that's exactly, you don't want, in this day and age, you don't want a guy that's got a fizzled out arm, collecting a ton of cash, just sitting on your roster. And especially, it's one thing in the NFL where you can cut a guy, but baseball is guaranteed contracts. So you pay that guy and he's there. He is just there.
Yeah. And if you trade him away, you'll probably have to eat a lot of his contract, or you DFA him, you have to still pay that money.
So there's one more baseball thing I wanted to do, and this came up in a conversation with a friend. So Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens are they went onto the Hall of Fame ballot the same time. So they have you get 10 years that you can be on the ballot before you get dropped off and you don't make the Hall of Fame. Both Bonds and Clemens have 4 more ballots that they can be on before they're dropped. I wanted to go through some of the names that are on these lists to see if eventually you think Bonds and Clemens get on. So they're not in this year. Not going to make it this year. So 2019, the names on the ballot will be Jose. These are the new names. This doesn't include the names that have carried over that got enough ballots to stay on. So the new names will be Jose Contreras, Jake Westbrook, Juan Pierre, John Garland, Octavio Dotal, Darren Oliver, Ryan Dempster, Travis Hafner, Jason Bay, Ted Lilly, Vernon Wells, Derek Lowe, Kevin Youkilis, Freddie Garcia, Placido Polanco, Miguel Tejada, Roy Oswalt, Lance Berkman, Andy Pettit, Todd Helton, Roy Halladay, Mariano Rivera, and Andrew Jones.
Well, it's funny because the names you listed at first, I'm thinking those aren't not only first ballot, I don't think those are even Hall of Famers. Then as you went on, you started to get into some Hall of Fame discussions. Like Mariano Rivera, to me, is the guy who stands out as a first ballot Hall of Famer on that list. There are a few other guys that stood out as Hall of Famers on that list. I'm just not sure first ballot. Berkman, yeah, not first ballot, but in. Oswalt, not first ballot, but in. But
Pettit
might. Let me look at his stats. He may be close to a first ballot. I'm not.
I think Roy Halladay is going to make it. and it's going to be partially sentimental because he passed away.
Yeah, I think he was a Hall of Famer no matter what, but I think that reason will give him a few more votes. Okay, looking at Pettit's numbers, those numbers aren't quite as good as I thought they were.
No, he just got the boost from the team he played on.
I mean, here, 385 career ERA, 374 FIP, 1.351 WHIP. It's not bad. It's over 2,000 strikeouts. It's not bad, but that doesn't really scream first ballot Hall of Famer at all.
No, it doesn't. It's more his name, I think. So I don't know if he's definitely not a first ballot guy. But I think Edgar Martinez makes it in next year.
I think so too.
Mariano Rivera, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a guy that should get 100% of the ballot. And Roy Halladay. I don't think Bonds and Clemens make it next year.
I don't think so either. And some of the other names, like John Garland, he's not a Hall of Famer.
No.
Jose Contreras,
Ted Lilly.
no. Ted Lilly, no. Ted Lilly. He had some good years, but no.
Next on 2020 list, you have you've got Kyle Farnsworth. I mean, that's a surefire Hall of Famer, right?
Maybe in football tackles, better by baseball players.
Nate McCluth, Joe Saunders, Jamie Wright,
really?
Alex Gonzalez, Jose Valverde, Ryan Ludwig, JJ Putz, Lyle Overbay, Adam Dunn, Raul Ibanez, Brad Penny, Chone Figgins, Carlos Pena, Paul Konerko, Alfonso Soriano, Brian Roberts, Josh Beckett, Eric Chavez, Rafael Furcal, Cliff Lee, Jason Giambi, Bobby Abreu, Derek Jeter. Those are your names from 2020.
That's a whole lot of decent players, but not great players. Like, I think Paul Konerko deserves a shot at the Hall of Fame. I just don't think he's a first ballot. Derek Jeter.
I thought the same thing, but compare Paul Konerko's numbers to Jason Giambi's. They're nowhere near as good.
Comparing Paul Konerko to Giambi or Giambi to Paul Konerko?
Jason Giambi's numbers are way better than Paul Konerko's.
All right, let's see. Here's Paul Konerko, Jason Giambi. I mean, Giambi is going to fall in the whole steroid thing, so there's.
I know. I'm not comparing that, but I'm just saying the numbers.
Christ, he had an on-base percentage of almost 400 in his career. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know it was that good. When I think of Jason Giambi, I just think of home runs. 440 of them, but 277, 399, career OPS of 916.
Yeah.
Over 2,000 hits. And then Konerko's not bad. 279, 354, 841. That's not bad at all, but I mean, you're right.
No, I wasn't saying they're bad. It was I just compared them to Giambi's and I went, what the heck? Jason Giambi had a great career.
Yeah, he really did. Yeah, looking at Paul Konerko is interesting. Because he had some really good years and some really like good years, but not great years. But I mean, overall, those are some pretty good numbers for him. Again, not first ballot, but he's going to be in the consideration. 439 home runs, that'll get you consideration. 279 average, over 2,300 hits. But I mean, yeah, I didn't realize Giambi's numbers were that good. I mean, think of his MVP season in 2000, 476 on base percentage. That wasn't even as good as his career high 477 the next year.
Yeah. So I don't think Giambi gets in just because of the steroid cloud over his head. But I think Derek Jeter definitely gets in.
And he's, one that's, I think he's kind of overrated by someone.
If he wasn't in pinstripes, he wouldn't be a Hall of Famer.
No.
And then I think Mike Mussina finally gets in.
Yeah, he's been kind of tinkering there for a while.
So 2020 is the first year you start to go, well, maybe Clemens and Bonds might sneak in there just because there's not a lot of names there.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be kind of that whole thing where people are going to say, well, since we've inducted other players that have had steroid allegations, we may just have to do it for some of these other players. So there's going to be that whole thing.
Yeah, but then you get to 2021 and 2022, and there are not a lot of names on here. 2021 is Skip Schumacher, Kevin Gregg, Grant Balfour, Jason Marquis, Rafael Soriano, Adam LaRoche, Corey Hart, LaTroy Hawkins, CJ Wilson, Dan Ugla, Aaron Harang, Nick Swisher, AJ Burnett, Grady Sizemore, Alex Rios, Shane Victorino, Aramis Ramirez, Barry Zito, Dan Herron, Torrey Hunter, Mark Burley, Tim Hudson.
Certainly none of those are first ballot. I mean, who on that list would even have a close shot at being a Hall of Famer? I mean, Rafael Soriano was good for a number of years. Aramis Ramirez was good for a number of years, but I'm not sure those are quite Hall of Fame numbers. There were some good players there, but nothing spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Burley only won 214 games. I mean, that's a decent amount, but
he was a really good pitcher, really smart pitcher, and I think that's what people appreciate him for. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but for what he had and what he used, he was really darn good. But not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, so I don't even see anybody in that class. I mean, maybe Jason Marquis.
Even so.
No, there's nobody on that list. So 2021.
Now, you know what's interesting? You know how you brought up Mike Mussina, just really quick? I just looked at his numbers. His numbers are significantly better than Andy Pettit's.
Yeah, he was a much better pitcher. He just didn't get the critical acclaim that Andy Pettitte had.
Well, and keep this in mind that actually people think of Mike Mussina as a Yankee, but you look a lot of his like all-star years and a lot of the recognition he got, that was in Baltimore. Yep. In fact, I don't think he won a World Series with the Yankees. No, he didn't. He never won a World Series with the Yankees because he arrived in 2001 and he pitched till 2008. They didn't win a World Series in that time.
Yeah, he was a true story. He was born in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, where the Little League World Series is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody from 2021 class gets in. That's going to be the year where somebody that's been on a ballot finally gets in. And maybe it's Clemens, maybe it's Bonds. I think the one that's more likely, though, Curt Schilling.
Yeah, I could see it. And there's other controversies with him, but there was never steroids.
So, that may be the year. But 2022 is another year. Ryan Vogelsong, Javi Lopez, Jeff Francoeur, Billy Butler, Matt Thornton, Omar Infante, Ryan Howard, Angel Pagan, Kyle Loesch, AJ Przinsky, Jonathan Papelbon, Juan Uribe, Tim Lincecum, Scott Kazmir, Michael Bourne, Prince Fielder, Joe Nathan, Marlon Byrd, Justin Morneau,
Marlon Byrd, I'm sorry.
Coco Crisp, Jake Peavy, Carl Crawford, Jimmy Rollins, Mark Teixeira, David Wright, David Ortiz, and A-Rod.
You know what is so interesting about that list? Is that so many players on that looked like they were on the path of Hall of Fame careers, but were derailed by injuries.
Yep.
Ryan Howard.
Prince Fielder.
Mark Teixeira. I'm sure there were a few others on there, but what really stood out to me on that list is that's like a list of could have been, should have been Hall of Famers. I mean, when Ryan Howard came in the league his first few years, I'm like, this guy's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer when this is all said and done. And then look what happened.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Papelbon, he was on a path and just fell apart. I mean,
look how good Prince Fielder was.
Yeah. I mean, David Ortiz, I think, is the guy that gets in from that ballot.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But
he's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
But I think it's just curious that the final year that Bonds and Clemens can be on the list, the first year A-Rod can be.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. That's going to be interesting when that comes up because that'll be like, well, if Bonds and Clemens didn't get in, then there's no way people would vote for A-Rod, right?
But wouldn't that be just weird that they're like, you know what? It's their last chance of being on the ballot. We got to put in Bonds and Clemens. But since we're putting them in, we might as well put A-Rod in because he deserves it as much as those two. And then A-Rod,
right, so he's going to do a first ballot.
Might as well put Canseco in too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's interesting to look at this list and think who they're going to leapfrog over Bonds and Clemens. And believe me, I'm a guy that doesn't like what they did, and I don't like the idea that they could be in the Hall of Fame, even though they're really, really good players. But it's interesting to see the guys that they could just have leapfrog Bonds and Clemens to get in.
Oh, seeing Marlon Byrd on a Hall of Fame ballot. I don't know. I lost it there.
Uh,
Want to hear something really interesting really quick? You know, I was talking about Prince Fielder.
Yeah.
Okay, so in his days with Milwaukee to about 2013, before he went to Texas, he had to retire when he was 32 because of the neck issues. Here's what he was doing. From 2005 to 2013, he slashed 286, 389, 916 with 269 home runs. There was a stretch of years, his last years in Milwaukee, he was getting on base at over a 400% clip and still having a high batting average and still hitting 30 to 40 home runs. I mean, that guy was really freaking good. And if he didn't have those injuries, he'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer on that track.
Look at his 2007. His on base percentage is almost 400. His OPS is 1.013, 50 home runs, 288 batting average. That's insane for a 50 home run guy.
And you know what's really weird? He was a 3.6 WAR player that year. Like, you would think that'd be like 5 and above. Then again, this is B WAR. Check out his F WAR because B WAR isn't as good as F WAR in my opinion, but I just find that kind of weird.
His 2009 was even better. 299 batting average, 412 on base, 1.014 OPS, 46 home runs, 141 RBIs.
You know, I remember him being good. I don't remember him being that good. Like, those are insane numbers. Okay, so here's Fangraphs. His Fangraphs WAR in 07 was 4.7. That sounds more right. We all know he wasn't the greatest defender, but he made up with it for the bat. 2009, he was nearly a 6 WAR player.
That's good.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I forgot how good he, because, when I was a kid, I didn't always look at the on base and the OPS. I would just always remember everyone for like how many home runs they hit or the batting average. Now that we have all these, I look at all these stats, it's like, wow, he was really, really freaking good.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Ryan Howard's stats here, and I mean, he had some good years too.
Yeah.
I mean, 2006, 313 batting average, 425 on base, 1.084 OPS, 58 home runs, 149 RBIs. And then it just like tanked. The batting average just started plummeting.
Striking out a lot.
Yeah. Where's the strikeouts here?
Here you go. K rates of 27 and above, even in the 50s. The 30s, not the 50s. The 30s. Like 330 words. 33.9 in 2012, 30 in 2013.
Yeah, he struck out a lot.
It, like I said, when he came up, people are like, this is going to be a reigning MVP in many seasons. He's going to be a future Hall of Famer. He's going to be an all-star year in, year out. It just really is too bad. But at least he'll always have like a good legacy, even though things ended pretty badly. I feel like people in Philadelphia will remember Ryan Howard for the better days than the not so good days.
We hope so. You really hope so. Because I mean, the guy really did help you win a World Series.
Yeah.
He did a lot for your team.
Yes, he did. Little bit of baseball news just broke. You ready for this?
Yes.
Todd Frazier is now a member of the New York Mets.
Huh.
That's kind of a very, very, very typical Mets move right there.
That is a really Mets move there.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, Frazier's got some nice pop and he's got a nice glove, but a guy over 30 that slugs in a park that isn't very hitter friendly, that's so incredibly Mets.
So, Ryan Howard played baseball last year for the Albuquerque Isotopes.
Albuquerque Isotopes, a.k.a. the Springfield Isotopes.
Holy cow. And he was terrible.
How terrible?
189 batting average, 208 on base percentage, 367 slugging, 4 home runs.
This was a guy who was the NL MVP in 2006.
Wait. Do you want to know what's even better? Do you know who his manager was?
Who?
Glenn Allen Hill.
Really?
Yep.
How about that? Mister, I'm going to hit it on top of the buildings across the street.
On a one skip pitch.
That's wow. Oof. Wow. I mean, we're talking about a guy in 2006 who slashed 313, 425, 1.084 in the majors with nearly 60 home runs. Wow.
That's really terrible. Like, I think the Isotopes are they affiliate of the Rockies?
I don't know. I don't, because didn't they recently change
According to Wikipedia, they're the AAA affiliate of the Colorado Rockies.
Okay.
So Ryan Howard is clearly not going to get the call up to the Rockies.
Yeah, even though a power hitter like him would probably benefit in that kind of stadium. Here's the thing that's really interesting. I knew Ryan Howard was, quote, up there in age in terms of baseball years. I didn't realize he was 38.
Yeah, he's old.
I was thinking he was 35.
And the thing is, he stayed on because he signed that big contract, and he wasn't going to go anywhere. He was going to take that money, even though he was striking out like crazy. Yeah,
I'm looking at his contract structure. It's on Baseball Reference. From 2011 to 2013, he was making $20 million a year, and then from 14 to 16, he was making $25 million a year. And then there was the buyout option that was this year. He was granted free agency November 6th, 2017, from the Colorado Rockies after being released by the Atlanta Braves last year, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember when he signed with the Braves, and I don't know if he ever played in a minor league game there, because he was granted free agency from the Phillies the day after the Cubs won the World Series, actually. Interesting fact. Then he was released by the Braves organization in May of last year, and then in August of last year, August 12th, he signed with the Rockies and obviously went to the Isotopes, and then he was granted free agency November 6th of 2017.
Huh.
Yeah.
Things you didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of stopped keeping track of Ryan Howard like when the Phillies started going south because, everyone knew who Ryan Howard was from 2006 to 2010 because that was like the window of contention for those Phillies teams. 2011 too, I should say in there as well. But after that, and that's really when things started falling apart because if you combine his major league stats from 2012 to 2016, this is what you get. 226, 292, 427 slugging and 96 home runs. So he still hit the ball out of the ballpark, but in terms of batting and on-base percentage, not very good.
No, not at all. Move on to basketball a little bit, and I don't want to talk about too much about it, but we finally got the trade we've been hoping for. Nikola Mirotic is no longer a Bull, and I know the guys from Bow will have a lot to say about that at the live show. You hear me? The live show. It's going to be a Peace Pizza on February 15th at 7 p.m. So head on over there at Peace Pizza on North Avenue in Chicago.
It's going to be
yeah, everyone's going to have a blast. But I'm sure they're going to have a lot to say about it because they recorded their last episode the day before the trade happened. So they missed out on being able to talk about it. But if you could think back to like the days after when Niko ran up on Bobby Portis and got laid out, did you ever in a million years think the Bulls would be able to trade him for a first-round pick?
God, no.
No, not at all. And they managed to do it. And granted, they had to take on a little bit of salary from Omer Asik. And speaking of guys that were like, you can't get rid of this guy. Remember when the Bulls lost out on signing Omer Asik to a contract?
I do.
People were upset that he was gone. But, we're going to take on that contract of Omer Asik, but who cares? So you're going to spend like, what, $3-4 million and you get a first-round draft pick? All right. Like the Bulls are one of two teams that are still under the NBA minimum salary. So the awesome part about that is you're going to be able to take on other teams' bad contracts because you can absorb them and then bend them over and, to get other things. Think about what the Blackhawks had to give up in order to get rid of Brian Bickle's contract. They had to give up Teuvo Teravainen. There's going to be teams like that in the NBA where they want to get rid of albatross of a contract. The Bulls they'll be in a financial position to be able to take it on, but they'll have to get some assets in return to take on that money. That's a great part about where they're at financially.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think taking on Omer Sheik's contract is really that big of a deal. Plus, they're going to make I think they're going to make some other trades before this is all said and done. So, yeah, not really a big deal. You know what's kind of funny is that, like, maybe 2-3 days before the trade, I actually, like, looked up to see if Omer Sheik, I don't know why I started thinking about him, but I'm like, Omer Sheik, is he even still playing? Like, I kind of wasn't sure if he was even a thing at the time.
Yeah, Omer Sheik is still in the league and still collecting a big paycheck. But the other player that has been rumored, I mean, the NBA trade deadline is coming up pretty quick. I think it's Thursday. We're recording this on Monday. And the other name that's been thrown around a lot is Robin Lopez.
As expected.
It's expected. He's a good teammate. He's a solid player, but I mean, if you can't get much for him, I don't know why you bother trading him. That's the thing. Is you got to be able to get something in return.
That's why I think.
And if it's a second,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And if it's a second round pick, you know the Bulls are just going to sell it anyway, or give it away, or whatever it is they do with second round picks. They don't take them. Then what's the point? Why not just keep Robin Lopez? I mean, how you have that veteran presence. He's a good locker room guy, hustle guy, and have him just be a team leader for your young players. I just don't understand unless you can get something good for him, I don't understand the purpose of getting rid of him.
I think that a lot of people are saying that there could be a possibility of him being involved in a package deal. So it wouldn't just be trading him. It could be trading like him and Holiday or somebody like that. But yeah, it would be nice to get something of value from him. This is just a wild dream, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen or it's likely, but if they somehow were able to package together Holiday and Lopez for another first-round pick, how great would that be?
That would be awesome. I mean, that would just be fantastic.
It's more of a dream, but, you know, I can dream, right?
You can dream. But the first-round pick for Niko, just to hop back on that for a second, is top 5 protected. So, you know, although New Orleans is 28-24, and the top, they would have to go on a 10-game losing streak before they would be competing for a bottom 5 position. It is top 5 protected.
Right.
But right now, as it stands, the Bulls have the 6th pick in the NBA draft with an 18.3% to get a top 3 pick. And New Orleans pick would be 17th, which is not bad. You are in the top, roughly the top half of the, you know, right in the middle of the first round. Not a bad place to be, especially considering, you know, you can package those two if you really, really want to move up.
Yeah, that's why I look at Pelicans scores and I'm just like, all right, let's do some losing, guys.
I know. I really hope he's Niko's a cancer on that team. They start falling off the ledge.
Yeah, I mean, because let's see. Because DeMarcus Cousins, there was that whole thing just recently, so I have that feeling that they might start losing some games here. So, really sucks what happened to DeMarcus Cousins. That's really hard to see, but I'm just saying, without him, you know, that could affect things quite negatively for them.
And the Bulls are only 2.5 games out of being the worst team in basketball. They're on a 6-game losing streak. So this tank is really still on.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it. with the combination of injuries and just coming back down to earth, and we any sane person would know that this team wasn't really competing even during that win streak. So think about this team if they didn't have that win streak.
But yeah, they would be so at the bottom. But the funny part is they are so much better with Chris Dunn playing.
Yeah,
and he's been nursing this concussion. And then don't get me wrong, that was a nasty hit, but they are totally milking how long he's on the shelf. He has to be able to be ready to play.
Yeah,
I mean, Rob Gronkowski just got a freight train came and hit him, smashed him in the face, and 10 days later he was out there playing in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I'm okay with it. I know you want him to play. I know you want him to develop, but if you want to sit him a little longer so they lose a few games and you know he's going to heal 100% properly, you do it.
Oh, I'm not arguing with you at all. I'm just saying this is totally some sort of trickery, because I think Chris Dunn's probably fine.
Yeah.
But if this is going to lose them more games, so be it. Get that number 1 pick.
Yeah, really. I mean, this is just a year you want them to lose. It's that simple.
Yeah, lose.
If you want to win tomorrow, you got to lose today.
Yeah, lose. Get a top draft pick, plus get that New Orleans number 1. Hopefully, they can get number 1 from somebody else, and have 3 number 1 picks. Woo, I like that. Solid. Yeah, solid core. Levine and Dunn and Markkanen, like you've got a solid core there. You add top first round and then 2 other first round picks. You're a team that's on the rise.
Think about it this way: you have 3 promising prospects already, like you said, and then if you have multiple first round picks, I mean, you're like a draft and an offseason away from starting to climb into, I'd say, respectability, where you're not really a winning team, but you're a force, and you're a force with young talent, not like some hodgepodge veteran teams that just kind of scoot by, aka last year's Bulls team, but like an actual competitive, young, athletic force. And this kind of tells me that if all goes right with this draft and this offseason, what moves they make, then they could be closer to competing than I thought they were going into this season. Because going into this season, I'm just like, man, this team is going to be bottom feeding for the next 3 years at minimum. Where now you're actually seeing that though they're not close to a championship yet, they're further down the road than maybe we thought they were originally. And that's all bearing if Markkanen continues to do good things and Dunn and Levine continue to do good things and play at a healthy competitive level.
Fully agree. You got to expect Levine's going to keep getting better. He's still coming off of a serious knee injury. He's just going to get better and better. Dunn has been flourishing under you, and you got to figure he's going to get better. Markkanen has been absolutely phenomenal. And so, yeah, you've got money to sign a max free agent contract. You're going to have first round draft capital. This is a good position to be in.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I know it sounds kind of corny getting excited over draft picks because we've seen what's happened with the 76ers in Philadelphia, but at least you see more promise with this because of what they already have in terms of young prospects.
Absolutely. But switching over, I think we should wrap this up with a little football. And the big news coming out of Bears Dome is our latest Hall of Fame player, Brian Urlacher, class of 2018. And, going into this final vote, we all knew he was going to be a finalist, but there was a lot of talk that maybe he's not a first ballot guy. And that was the silliest thing I had ever heard. Like, I don't understand is, especially when their lone argument was, well, Ray Lewis is a sure ballot Hall of Famer, and you can't put two linebackers in the same year.
Why not?
What?
Why not? They were both two very different linebackers that impacted their team in different ways.
And, when you start comparing them, other than the Super Bowl victory, Brian Urlacher is pretty much, the same, if not better, career numbers than Ray Lewis. If you look at all pro voting, Brian Urlacher beat him in most years. Brian Urlacher has 8-time Pro Bowler, Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, a linebacker with 22 career interceptions, 100 plus tackles in 9 of his 13 seasons. I mean, the guy was incredible.
Yeah.
And he absolutely deserved to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And it's great that they finally came to their senses and made that vote.
I was so happy when I saw that he got voted in, because right before he got voted in, I was watching a lot of his highlight reels, whether it was on YouTube or NFL.com or Chicago Bears or whatever. I mean, the guy was just a pure monster in every aspect of the defense. The way he would just come and destroy you, whether you were a quarterback, a receiver, he would just come in full freight train. And the way he could take the ball away, the way he could run with it, I mean, it was just such a treat to watch him. And 22 career interceptions. I mean, it was no interception beats the pick six he had off Brett Favre. But man, so many things he did. Over 1,000 career tackles. He was just a treat.
I still will never forget the 2006 game against the Arizona Cardinals. I think it was a Monday night game, and he had 19 tackles. 19 tackles in one game.
And wasn't there a really big key block in that game as well that he had? Like a pass block or a deflection? I don't
remember. I remember Dennis Green's rant after the game, though.
Oh, that was the most legendary part. That game, wasn't that a game where all the points were scored defensively?
Defensively or special teams. They didn't score any offensive points.
Right. Yeah, because I think Devin Hester took one back.
He had an 83-yard punt return.
Right.
And it was just Brian Urlacher basically put a Superman cape on in that game and just took over that second half. It was phenomenal. If there was ever any doubt that Brian Urlacher, is a Hall of Famer, just put on the second half of that game and watch him just annihilate the Cardinals.
People will try to counter him being a Hall of Famer with the one highlight he got juked, but it's wow, okay. One highlight. I mean, every good player is going to get faked out at some point. Happens to everyone. I mean, even Aaron Rodgers said that he deserves to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. If one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time tells you that, a person he played against, then I think that's a pretty good case right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations, Brian Urlacher. Well deserved. And I'm going to try to make the Hall of Fame induction. I've been to Canton, to the Hall of Fame. It's really cool, but I've always wanted to go when a player I really liked was inducted, and I think this might be the year I go.
Who do you think is going to be the next Bear to make it there? I ran a poll on Twitter the other day. Devin Hester? That was the popular vote on my poll as well.
I can't even think of who
Peanut Tillman?
I don't think he makes it. I don't think he makes it.
You don't think Lance Briggs ever has a chance?
I'm not saying he doesn't have a chance. I just don't think he makes it because they're gonna compare him to Brian Urlacher. Well, Brian Urlacher was better, so Lance Briggs doesn't deserve to be in. Lance Briggs was a hell of a defensive football player. I just don't think he makes it in. Peanut doesn't make it in. Julius Peppers makes it in, but I don't think you call him a bear.
No.
So if you did count him as a bear, I'd probably say Julius Peppers because that's a lock Hall of Famer. Wow. And I mean, what other options do you have after that?
I mean, those are really the ones: Briggs, Hester, Peanut Tillman, and like you said, if you really want to count him as a bear, Julius Peppers. But yeah, I mean, those are your options. And I think Devin Hester was definitely the most unique of that class right there because, he broke the record for all that stuff.
His vote is going to be really interesting because, what he did for those handful of years was absolutely dominant. I mean, he changed the way that, you treat special teams. He absolutely redefined it. So it's going to be interesting to see if the voters recognize it or if they look at him as a guy that did one thing, because he was a terrible wide receiver.
Yeah,
he was a terrible cornerback. Because he came in as a cornerback.
Yeah, I know. People forget that.
I still remember. I think it was Torrey Holt. The game against the Rams, and Torrey Holt burned him for a touchdown. And instead of showing the kickoff, they were busy showing Torrey Holt on the sideline, hooting and hollering and posing for the camera. And then they cut over, and Devin Hester just returned the next kickoff for a touchdown and just got those points back.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, it's going to be interesting for those reasons. But can you name a single player on special teams that the whole world would stop to watch like Devin Hester? No.
Just think of that Super Bowl game against the Bears Colts, and just watch, the right before he caught that opening kickoff, and watch the camera flashes.
Yeah.
Just watch the camera flashes. If that doesn't tell you that the whole world was watching Devin Hester, then you're full of it. That's exactly what they wanted to see. Devin Hester run that ball, and he did it. He took that opening kickoff and ran it for a touchdown, and then it went down. The game went downhill from there.
Yeah, exactly. I try to forget the rest of that game, but you're absolutely right. I mean, the whole stadium lit up with camera flashes, and just being at Soldier Field or watching it on TV, when the ball was kicked and Hester was getting under it, you felt the crowd get excited. You could hear it and you can just feel it. You don't see that with any return man anymore. Not even close to the excitement that Devin Hester would bring. People would watch Bears kickoffs just to watch Devin Hester.
They changed the kickoff rule.
And think about how more he could have had if they didn't.
Yeah, because they moved it. They're like, well, they stopped kicking to people, so we need to make it so you get more yards from this if you kick it into the end zone. Like, because otherwise they would just screw it. We'd rather let them have it at the 20 than give Devin Hester a chance to return it. Didn't make any sense.
It's too bad because Devin Hester wasn't just liked by Bears fans. He was enjoyed by all football fans. Football fans liked watching him. Whether you were even Packers fans enjoyed watching him if he wasn't playing against the Packers. People would just watch him because of how exciting he was. And that is
it was electric.
Yeah.
It was absolutely electric. I always make that argument is if You look at a guy, it's called the Hall of Fame, not necessarily the Hall of the best stats. And if you have a guy who is under the radar but had really good stats and a lot of Pro Bowls, and he's up against a guy that may have been a one-dimensional guy, but the whole world knew who he was and watched for him and bought his jerseys, and he was every highlight reel for your league. That's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Fame, famous.
And you know what?
Name another special teams player that sold nearly as many jerseys as Devin Hester.
Probably no one. Definitely no one.
Yep, nobody. That guy is just, he redefined kickoff, returns, and he deserves to be in. It'll be interesting to see his vote.
And you know what? A lot of football Hall of Famers were one-dimensional players where they were just good at one thing. And Devin Hester may have been not a very good receiver at all, but he was darn good at special teams. I mean, every component of football is important, so shouldn't the best special teamers be on that list as well? I mean, think about it.
There's kickers in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't there be a kick returner?
Exactly.
A couple more things. As of today, it's reported that Brad Childress will now join the Bears as an offensive consultant.
I saw that.
I think a lot of people speculated when the Bears hired Matt Nagy that Brad Childress might be lured away to be his offensive coordinator because they're very, very close. Matt Nagy kind of refers to him very lovingly as a very, very close confidant, and the other way around as well. So it's not surprising. Brad Childress retired, but he's going to join the Bears, and he's from Aurora, so he's a area guy coming home, and he's going to do consulting work. So I don't think he's not going to be there on the sidelines, game day. I'm sure it's just a lot of over high level, prepping for, game planning for teams and kind of giving another set of eyes and another opinion on things. So I really like that hire. It's another guy who was a head coach in this NFL, and he's been in the league forever. It's just more experience that you've got, and I think those are the things that help you be successful. Is even if you have maybe guys that weren't successful head coaches, and you have them on your staff in some capacity, I think it's just a good sign, because clearly to be a head coach, they were really good at something they did, whether it was a coordinator or what, and to be able to have their expertise. You look at failed experiments like Mark Trestman, and he just had a bunch of wackadoos from Canada come down and be a part of this coaching staff, and nobody had done their job before, and it was a bunch of inexperienced people, and it just showed. You bring in a whole slew of, your defensive coordinator has been a defensive coordinator since dirt was discovered, and so is his coaching staff. They know how to do this. It's old hat. They've been in this building for how many years? Your offensive staff you've got, you're bringing in well-respected people, and it's going to pay dividends.
Yeah, exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
And it's even more apparent is, I don't know if you read the Jordan Howard quote, but basically he was saying how the defenses they played against were calling out their plays before they ran them, and that just goes to how predictable the Bears' offense was.
Yeah,
we as fans knew what was happening, and imagine what teams that full of professional coaches watching the film, for every minutia, what they knew. It was, when you're predictable and you're lacking talent and you're predictable, it's like a double whammy. It's so much to overcome to be able to be successful.
Exactly. I mean, I think that it's a really frustrating thing to hear, but you're also relieved that you don't have to go through it anymore.
Just to think of how successful Ryan Howard has been. Now imagine putting him on a offensive team with a better offensive line.
Yeah.
That guy is he's gonna be massive yards.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. I'm excited to see how things can be changed up here. And watching the Super Bowl yesterday, you watch these offensive, both offensive units of the Patriots and the Eagles. You see how they mix things up, they get creative, they use all their weapons. And I'm just sitting there watching and I'm like, this is what we've been waiting for. This is what we want to see. This is what we didn't see at all. It kind of gave me an idea of what needed to be happening in Chicago, and you hope that this new scheme can bring that.
Yeah, you saw how you were able to throw the Patriots defense off by using RPO. You kept them on their heels, and that's what if you can get a defense on their heels, then the two things you can do to a defense to beat them is, one, get them on their heels and keep them guessing, and make them reactionary. The other thing is just absolutely physically dominate them. And if the Bears don't have the players to physically dominate a team, so they've got to keep them off balance and guessing, and what Matt Nagy's trying to do is just that, is create options to make the defense beat themselves.
Right. Actually thinking ahead and not being as dang predictable. It's so refreshing.
But there's one little thing that I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, and it's really interesting. How many times have you heard on the radio or read, online, people discussing what the Bears are going to do with their backup quarterback position?
Yeah, I've heard some recent discussions of that and several different paths that could be possibly taken.
My twist on that is, how awesome is that to think that we're not focused on who's our starting quarterback going to be. It's who's going to back up our starter, who's our legitimate starting quarterback.
Yeah, it's always been kind of a question of, should it be this person starting? Should it be that person starting? But we actually have a solidified starter, and hopefully no controversy in the future. But yeah, it's very un-Bears like.
Yeah, I mean, we're a team that has no wide receivers and is going to be drafting in the top 10 again for how many consecutive years. People are like, it's so facing the right direction that people are like, well, who's our backup quarterback going to be? How that is a good feeling. Not, man, who's going to be our starting left tackle? Or, man, we don't have cornerbacks on this team. Who's going to play cornerback? It's who's our backup quarterback? That's such a good feeling. That's when things are just pointing in the right direction.
Absolutely. Because you can go in several different ways with a backup quarterback. There's been talking about drafting. There's been talking about free agents signing, whatever. But it's definitely nice, new, and refreshing. Because for the longest time, it was, could this backup actually be the starter? Should they lose their job to the backup? No, you don't hear that much anymore. Thank goodness.
Yeah, because we all know Mike Glennon won't be back next year.
No, he won't. It's inevitable he gets cut.
But the last thing I want to talk about, unless you have more that you wanted to talk about, is every year around this time, right around the Super Bowl, I start talking about players that are going to be coming out in the NFL draft. And I like to break some of them down. I'll take a handful of guys from each position and every week I do a new position. And I don't watch just highlights because that doesn't really tell you anything. I take several games of each player and I watch every single snap that they play in the game so I can see what the trends are. What do they do? All right, they had 3 sacks in the first quarter. What do they do in the second quarter, in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter? Do they take plays off? Are they always hustling? Are they smart on when they're, a player that doesn't have the ball? So I really like to see everything they do. So the first position that I'm covering is tight ends, and next week will be quarterbacks. So I've got a little schedule here that'll get us to cover every position by the time that the draft happens. So the first batch of players is the tight ends, and the first one I reviewed was Dalton Schultz from Stanford, 6'6", 240. The pros I have on him, he's a solid inline blocker. He releases well from the line of scrimmage. That can be somewhat problematic for some tight ends. They get engaged with a guy, can't get off, and it screws up their route running. He releases really well from the line of scrimmage. He's got really soft hands, but he's got some questionable route running skills, sometimes a little sloppy. He's not that fast. He's not going to be a deep threat for you. But he's a very under the radar guy. I haven't seen a lot of people hyped up about him, but he always seems, watching the game film, he always seemed to find a way to get open. It reminded me a lot of like a Jason Witten. So I think he's a really under the radar guy. That's going to be a big boost because even if it takes him a little bit to get acclimated to the passing game in the NFL, he's going to be able to step right in day one and be able to block. Next is Hayden Hurst. He's from South Carolina, 6'5", 250. Looking at him, he looks like a grown man against college players. Like, he looks like a grown-ass man. He's versatile. You can line him up outside in the slot, in line as next to the tackle. They put him in the backfield as an H-back. He's got some decent speed on him, but he's not a very good pass blocker. I read some reports about his pass blocking ability, but in the games I watched, especially the Michigan game, he olayed a lot of guys. Like, he just let them go right by. He was pretty bad. But he played really well as an H-back and was a really good pass catcher. And where he did block well was in space. So out on screen passes or on bubble screens or when he got out ahead of receivers. So against defensive backs, he was a very good blocker then. So once you had some space, he was a good blocker. The big knock on him, though, is he's a little bit older. He's going to be 25 when the season starts, which is a little bit older for a rookie. Next is Mark Andrews, 6'5", 250 out of Oklahoma. He's another big body guy. Some of these tight ends look, they don't look very big, but he looks like a grown man. He's got some decent quickness. He's a big red zone. He was a big red zone target for Baker Mayfield. But he's a pass catcher. He's not a very good inline blocker. He doesn't always get the best separation from coverage, which is going to be a hurdle for him in the NFL. But you gave him a little bit of opening. He's going to make a catch because he has nice hands. I think he's going to blossom into a really nice red zone target in the NFL. But I think he really lacks the athleticism to be a great tight end. Next is Troy Fumagalli, 6'6", 248 out of Wisconsin. He runs really well. He has got nice routes, really nice hands, smart player. Always seemed to, had a knack to know exactly what to do in the play. Like, he just developed in his head. He knew what he was supposed to do. He was part of a really great Wisconsin team. He's a weird one because He in some games he looked really good as a blocker, but other games he looked really bad with bad footwork. He would always stand upright, especially the Michigan game. His technique isn't there, but he's pretty strong for his size, even though he's got a thin frame. And at times when he catches balls, he catches it in his body rather than out with his hands. He's going to be an interesting one because most of his use at Wisconsin, because they were such a ground team, they used him as a blocker. So that's where the majority of his film is him blocking. And he was a very inconsistent blocker. Some games he just looked really good, some bad, but he's got some sneaky power for a guy that was as thin as he is. I think he could put on some bulk and end up being a nice blocking tight end eventually. Couple more guys. There's Mike Gesicki from Penn State, 6'6", 252. He's a decent route runner. He's got some nice hands. Once he did catch the ball, it took a couple guys to drag him down. He was able to drag those defensive backs. He had some decent speed for a guy that size. He's a former volleyball player, so he's got some really, really good jumping skills. I think they're very similar to having a basketball player. It's having a volleyball player there. You know, his ups were good, but he's a dog turd blocker, really bad. He's got a very thin frame for a guy that's 252 pounds. I'm not that high on him. I think he has the tools to make it in the NFL, but he's got a lot of work to do. I think his best chance to make it on an NFL team long enough to make a go of it as a true tight end is I think he's going to have to make it as a special teamer. And he may have the makings for that, but I wouldn't be that high on drafting him. The last two guys are the two guys I'm really high on. The first one is Durham Smythe. Terrible football name. 6'4", 245 out of Notre Dame. He's easily the best blocker out of this whole group. He played at Notre Dame, so you know he played against big-time opposition. Very nice athleticism. Never got a lot of opportunities to catch passes in that offense, but that guy is going to come in day one of an NFL season and just start blocking people. He's just got that kind of attitude. I really like him. And the last one this is an under-the-radar guy, is Dallas Goddard, 6'4", 260 out of South Dakota State. This guy is super athletic. Great hands. I mean, great with a capital G. Absolutely dominating production at that lower level. Basically the same level, played the same teams that Carson Wentz did. This guy played against Carson Wentz. Dominating production, really good speed, and he came into the Senior Bowl and had a really, really good Senior Bowl practice, which is going to make teams take notice of him. The cons on him, though, are he's a small school guy, and he ended up not being able to play in the Senior Bowl because in the last practice before he got a hamstring injury, so it prevented him from playing. So you didn't get to see him actually play in that game. And then some of his inline blocking, he'll get a little upright, so it's a little technique issue. But I love him. He may need to redshirt a first year, kind of like the Bears had to do with their tight end. But I think he's going to be a really, really successful NFL player. I like him a lot. So those are the last guys I had to talk about. But, if there's any players or any tight ends out there that I didn't cover that you're interested in knowing about, hit us up on social media and I'll go back and watch them. I love watching game film, but at some point you're just like, I can only cover so many guys in my time. So if there's a guy that you guys want to hear about, let me know. And if there's another position player that you want me to cover, let me know too, and I'll make note that to go and make sure I scout them too.
All right, Alex. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl, the actual game, because it was a really, really entertaining game. Just thought I'd get some of your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I really liked the game. It was a lot different than I expected it to be. I really thought, I mean, the Eagles had one of the most stifling defenses in football. I think they were the number 2 ranked defense, maybe 3. But 3 of the 4 final teams had the top defenses. So Jacksonville, Minnesota, and Philadelphia. And I really thought that they would be able to contain the Patriots a little better than they did. So I was expecting a game like a 24-21 type game. And when both teams just started, especially in the second half, just unstoppable offenses, I was a little bit shocked.
Yeah, I was too. I mean, obviously, I know that the Patriots defense, it's not really shabby, but it's not really elite, where the Eagles have an elite defense. And it was just a shootout on both sides. And it was the most yards in a game in NFL history, in any game.
That's crazy. And it's funny because, the old saying is Bill Belichick will take your best weapon away on offense and force you to beat them a different way. And that's what they did. Is the Philadelphia running game never really fully got on track.
No.
And they're a running team. But so Bill Belichick was like, beat us, Nick Foles. And Nick Foles just went and was, all right, no problem. I got this.
And you also got to credit the offensive line for really giving him protection consistently in the entire game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there was a single sack in this entire game.
I don't know if there was either. I mean, there was the forced fumble of Brady, but that wasn't was that a strip sack?
Yeah, it wasn't a sack. It was a forced fumble. And
just a forced fumble, yeah. Yeah,
so I don't think there was any sacks in this game. But Tom Brady was under fire. He got knocked. I mean, even on that last Hail Mary play, watch the action behind the line of scrimmage, and he gets walloped on that.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, there was one sack in the game.
Okay, maybe they called that a sack.
But wasn't it Graham who forced the fumble?
I'm trying to remember who,
because he was credited with the sack.
Okay, then it must have been him. But yeah, I mean, Brady was under fire, and honestly, Tom Brady started to look his age for the first time ever.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about his performance is that he racked up over 500 yards, but you saw some really key moments that he just didn't execute.
Look at that skinny post that he missed Gronkowski.
Yeah.
And that is a bread and butter play. I mean, that is like, he should be able to throw those in his sleep. And he missed it. He was a 50% completion rate in the first half, and Tom Brady in a Super Bowl, those aren't Tom Brady numbers. And then showing the sign of his age is on that play that, one of the big differences is the two teams ran the same play for the most part. And the Eagles scored a touchdown on it, a 4th and goal, where the reverse then screen power, throw to the quarterback, and the Eagles scored a touchdown on it, 4th and goal, and the Patriots tried doing that to Tom Brady, and Tom Brady had 6 miles of real estate in front of him.
Oh, he was gone. Yeah,
and he was so slow and couldn't raise his hands up to get it. He wasn't that guy to be able to go and athletically get it. And that's what a 40-year-old does.
Yeah, that was one thing that's been talked about a lot, is that it was almost the Eagles trolling the Patriots by doing that, and by doing it successfully. I mean, it was beautifully executed when they pulled that out. And then, like you said, if that would have worked out with Brady, he would have all the room to run. And it looked like it was going to work. He just couldn't get it. And you would think that most young athletic quarterbacks these days would get to it, but 40-plus-year-old Tom Brady couldn't do it.
Yeah, and that's not to knock Tom Brady saying he sucks. Just saying is you can fight off Father Time to the best you can, but eventually Father Time wins, and when he wins, he hits hard.
Yep.
And 40-year-old quarterback doing what he's doing is eventually this is going to just come to a head, and there's going to be that day where it looks ugly. Joe Montana played for a long time, and then things got real ugly at the end.
Sure. I'm sure the same thing happened with John Elway and Steve Young and all those guys.
Yeah, the things just, they don't work like they're supposed to. Getting bumped, knocked to the ground when you're 25, 27, 29, not a big deal. When you're 40, then start to be getting a little sore.
Yeah.
And once you're doing things when you're a little sore, more sore than usual, then your mechanics change a little bit because you're either in pain while you're doing it, or you're doing it differently to have less pain. And that's when things start getting out of whack. It's eventually Father Time is going to win. He wins every single time. He's undefeated. Exactly.
And sometimes he comes to you at a younger age. Sometimes he comes to you at an older age, like Tom Brady, but eventually he comes. So I think that was a really big moment, not only in the game last night, but just on the overall spectrum of everything. So, really, really, really entertaining game overall. And what I really would love to see is just this kind of thing happening to the Bears, because we watched another Bear in Alshon Jeffrey make an impact and win a Super Bowl in another uniform. And it gets really frustrating. And eventually, you just really want to see this, as a Bears fan, happen to the Bears.
Yeah, and the thing about Alshon is, fine, you get rid of Alshon. That's fine. But you better have a plan to replace his productivity. And you can't replace a pretty darn good wide receiver with 3 mediocre wide receivers. That's not how that works. So you need to be able to replace productivity if you're going to get productivity. When you replace Brandon Marshall, you said, well, we're going to put our eggs into the Alshon Jeffrey basket. And then Alshon got hurt. You're like, well, if Alshon's healthy, this is what we're going to get. Alshon still wasn't healthy. And then finally you're like, all right, well, we're going to put all our eggs in Cameron Meredith, Kevin White, Marcus Wheaton, and that basket had a giant hole in the bottom of it. So, you gotta have a better plan. The plan to replace players that you get rid of that are talented better be real good.
Absolutely.
When you decided to let Matt Forte go, Matt Forte had some fairly solid years when he went to the Jets. So he still had a few miles left in that tank, but you had a very good option afterwards. You eventually got Jordan Howard, who right now is head and shoulders better than Matt Forte. Will he have as good of a career with the Bears as Matt Forte? Yet to be determined. But right now, head to head, Jordan Howard is 100 out of 100 people will take Jordan Howard over Matt Forte.
Yeah, the potential is just so big.
So that's a position where you're like, okay, we upgraded. We got rid of a guy that had production talent, and we not only replaced the talent, we improved it. That's the thing you got to do. And that's really what you saw with the Eagles. Look at the Eagles. They lost their left tackle. They replaced a guy. They lost Carson Wentz, who was in discussions as going to be the MVP of the league. And you went to win the Super Bowl with Nick
And it's not like Nick Foles rode like the defense all the way. Nick Foles was unreal in these past 2 games, in the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship.
So Nick Foles was traded to the Rams for Sam Bradford. And then Nick Foles, and then Sam Bradford was traded to Minnesota, and he got replaced by Case Keenum. Then Nick Foles came back to Philadelphia and then beat Case Keenum. Kind of a weird incestual thing there.
It really kind of shows how some of these things can come around in full circle. Really interesting story, and a really great one for Nick Foles. Think about it. In the city of Philadelphia, I don't think Nick Foles is ever going to have to buy anything ever again in that city.
Or if he needs a police horse, I know somebody that's got 2.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
But that Eagles team is going to... The Patriots, they've got a lot of question marks, and they're losing 2... I think they're losing 3 coordinators. At least 3 coaches.
I thought at least 2, but yeah, it could be more.
I think their special teams guy is leaving too, or their linebacker. Somebody else is leaving. I saw. But they're definitely their offensive and defensive coordinator are going. Who knows if Gronkowski, he's rumored to retire. You've got a controversy brewing because your starting quarterback went to the owner to force the head coach / GM to trade their backup quarterback. And then you've also got another controversy is because your best defensive player never saw a snap in the Super Bowl and sat in full uniform on the sideline.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting what's going to happen there. And I think a lot of people are kind of closely watching this one because this is a big deal here.
That is a big deal. Is like, what did Malcolm Butler do to not be able to deserve a snap in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I know. That's really, really something.
And it's even crazier is if you watch like on Instagram and stuff, former Patriots are saying Bill Belichick was wrong. And I forgot who posted that the locker room was divided about this. And Malcolm Butler was crying before the game started. So this must have just got sprung on him before kickoff.
Yeah, I mean they showed it all over NBC on the sidelines.
So, Bill Belichick is doubling down. People are like, well, what happened? You lost, and don't you think you could have, in a game where you couldn't stop Nick Foles, don't you think Malcolm Butler would have been helpful? We did what we thought was best and put the best players in a personnel package to win the game. Well, you didn't win the game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people are going to be talking about that for a while. I'll tell you, that's not just going to be slid under the rug. People are going to be talking about that.
Pride cometh before a fall. But yeah, it was a good game, and the Eagles are going to be good for a while. That core of players they have is signed for the next 3 years. Zach Ertz, Alshon Jeffrey, Carson Wentz. They've got all these guys, several of their offensive linemen are all signed through 2018, 2019, and 2020.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to build a core here that's going to sustain success. I don't think this is going to be a 1-and-1 deal with this Eagles team. And it's so amazing that going into the season, I thought the Eagles were going to be like a 6-7 win team. I didn't really think they were going to go anywhere. And here they are with like the best record in the NFC and winners of the Super Bowl.
And people are like, well, you could, first there's crazy people that are like, well, you can trade Carson Wentz. You're not trading Carson Wentz.
No.
You're not trading Carson Wentz.
He's your future no matter what.
Yeah. And you don't even trade Nick Foles because think about it is when did Carson Wentz tear that ACL? Mm-hmm. December 11th. Typically it's a year recovery. I mean, for every one guy that's Adrian Peterson, there's thousands upon thousands of guys that take nearly twice as long. Carson Wentz is not going to be ready to play the start of the season. So you need Nick Foles to start the season. I mean, who knows? He may have to play the first half or more of the season.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Well, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to talk about, my friend.
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening. Please make sure you hit subscribe on however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or the TuneIn app. Hit us up on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, and Facebook.com/Swerski Sports. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please, if you are in the Chicagoland area and you like pizza and beer, head on over to Peace Pizza February 15th, 7 p.m. to watch the live podcast and, heckle or yell or whatever you want to do. Come on out. It'll be fun. And thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on the plains.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.